Welcome back, everybody, to the X Factor podcast. Today, we're coming right with you with week 2 of college football. Let's just say we've had a pretty wild week so far. Week 1, very fun to watch. Week 2, I feel like it's just gotten crazier. And we're gonna go through these top 25 matchups. We're gonna review the new top 25, and then we're gonna go through these next weeks of matches and see what is up. First off, the first 4 teams, blowouts. Georgia, 48-3. Ohio State, 56-0. Texas, 31-12 against Michigan. Huge game. I don't think many people, like, if you watched Boise State, and there's a lot of people that said that Michigan still has a chance. If you would have watched Michigan last week against Boise State, they had no chance. Texas is one of the strongest teams, one of the best teams in college football this year, in my opinion. It literally comes down to Texas, Georgia, Ohio State. It literally comes down to them three, and then it's just everyone else. You could throw Alabama in there, but Alabama struggled against South Florida. Fourth quarter, they come back, score a lot of points. It happens every time. Alabama struggles. They come into the second half. They lay it on them. Makes it look good, you know. But Quinn Ewers, solid game. 246 yards, 3 touchdowns. Michigan, on the other hand, it just didn't look. From the start, it just looked off. Davis Warren, he's not a great quarterback. He had 204 yards, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown. Only had 10 incompletions. Running the ball, Donovan Edwards, he hasn't really done much. 2 weeks in a row, hasn't really done much. I'm honestly surprised that we haven't seen any Alex Orji action at all. I know, he might not be as good as Davis Warren, but right now Davis Warren set a low bar for Michigan and the reigning national champions. And if you look at Michigan's schedule from here on out, they had Fresno State, and then they had Texas, where they got blown out. They got to play Arizona State. They're going to win. They got to play USC. They're going to lose. Minnesota could be a trap game. Minnesota could come in there and upset them. Same thing with Washington. Illinois, they can come in and make an upset, I think. Michigan's defense is going to be the big one to look, especially if they're going to play like this all year. Michigan State, potentially. Oregon, they're going to lose to Oregon. They're Indiana just put 77 on a no-name school, so you never know. And then Northwestern, they'll beat Northwestern. Northwestern is not that great. And then they'll get demolished by Ohio State at the end of the year. But, just based off from these first 2 games, struggling against Fresno State, to losing to Texas, getting blown out in Texas by Texas, they're not going to repeat as champions, and I could go as far as saying they might not even make the playoffs. The way they played, that's not championship material football, Defense didn't look good, offense didn't look good, it just looked bad from start to finish. But going on to next team, Alabama, they put up 42 against South Florida, and it wasn't really close until the end, or it wasn't really a blowout until the end. Jalen Murrow, he had an alright game, 16 for 2,694 yards, 2 touchdowns. Solid, nothing huge. Like I said, it just seems like Southern Florida the last 2 years they've struggled and to beat them, but they've beaten them. but like most of the game they struggled and couldn't get in there, and then obviously at the end they've come through. Talk about upset of the week. NIU, Northern Illinois, defeats Notre Dame. One of the biggest upsets I feel like we've had in the last couple of years. This is just came out of nowhere. Week 2, don't really expect nothing. NIU comes in, they beat them 16-14. Now they didn't throw the ball a lot. They only threw 19 times, 198 yards. 198 yards on 10 completions, so it was pretty solid. They had a touchdown along of 83 yards. Rushing, they had a solid day rushing, 190 yards rushing. And Ontario Brown, 2 catches, 146, receiver for NIU. That stat line, you take that stat line away, and that touchdown, they don't win the game. Of course, it's the game-winning field goal, but Notre Dame, after beating Texas A&M, they come in and lose here. And Riley Leonard, 2 interceptions, didn't look great, 163 passing yards. I know Notre Dame, I read something the other day, Notre Dame has struggled against some of these upsetting teams that they've lost to. I think they lost to Stanford last year or whatever, I believe. One of the teams they lost to last year, I know was an upset. I watched it. But this just came out of the blue. NIU comes in, defeats them, starts 2-0. Coach after the game crying. That just shows hard work, I think, and such a good effort from NIU, and from a team that nobody expects to come into Notre Dame and win. They paid him $1 million just for them to play this year for them, just for them to have a scheduled game for them, and they still beat them. They'll learn next time not to book them on their schedule, but very big upset coming right from NIU. Notre Dame, on the other hand, I think they can catch a break here. Sometimes you get those upsets, but then you come on and then you go on and have some good games after. They play Purdue next week. I expect them to probably beat Purdue, Miami of Ohio. They'll probably Louisville is who they lost to last year. That was the game. And then they play Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State. Florida State's in a hole. They're not even. Florida State, if they even have a chance at beating Notre Dame, cancel the season for Notre Dame. But Notre Dame could still finish off strong. But that one loss to Northern Illinois is really going to sting them all year. Because if they go undefeated or whatever, which I don't think will happen, that they could look at that game and be like, we had a shot, to go undefeated. Ole Miss, they destroy on Middle Tennessee. They had a big blowout win last week. They come in this week and demolish again. Ole Miss is becoming one of those teams. I feel like they could be up there as one of the better teams in college football. Jackson Dart, only 2 incompletions in the whole game. That shows a lot right there. He had 377 yards passing, 1 touchdown, but 4 touchdowns from Henry Parrish Jr., the running back, 14 carries, 165 yards. Very good game. Ole Miss is looking like a scary team this season. And hell, Jackson Dart, maybe Heisman going into the season. Now this game was interesting. Oregon versus Boise State. Oregon, they struggled to beat Idaho last week, and they struggled to beat Boise State, but they beat them. But I don't think this is a game where you should sit there and say Oregon sucks, because Boise State looks pretty fucking solid, and it's only because of one man, Ashton Gentry, 25 carries, 142 yards. He had like 400 yards last week against Georgia Southern or whatever, or Georgia State. Like, this motherfucker, he carried them to a win. It's very fun to watch as he's able to get through by with players and just show an impact just as a one-man wrecking crew on the team. How their quarterback, 17 for 40. Like, the fuck? You look at that stat line from the quarterback, you be like, damn, they got blown out. You put in the running back stat line, it's like, holy shit, you know? Oregon, though, I think they could be frauds. Having almost losing to Idaho, though, that one doesn't really help them much. And then barely beating Boise State. Doesn't really look good on Oregon's part, as it's supposed to be a top 10 team. But Boise State could be legit. Quarterback playing great though, so that takes away a lot of stuff. Penn State versus Bowling Green, another upset that almost happened. Connor Bazelak for Boise State looked pretty good out there. He did have 2 interceptions, which the last one ended up being the game winner for Penn State. And I posted this earlier today. Penn State's going to crumble. Because let's be honest, Drew Aller, he ain't a great quarterback. The only way they're going to be able to win is off their running game. And of course, their defense. But the funny thing is about college football and this whole 8-12 team playoffs, Penn State is one of those teams that they get into that top 4 area these last couple of years, but then they crumble at some point. They lost to Michigan and Ohio State last year. I know in 2021 they lost to Iowa when they were ranked 3rd. Iowa was up there ranked 5th or whatever. Such good times, by the way, as an Iowa fan. That was such a good time. And then they just keep choking in some of these bigger games under James Franklin. And now they have this 12-team playoff. And it would have sucked if they would have lost to Bowling Green. Because that would have been embarrassing on Penn State's part. But I do believe at some point Penn State will crash. They will crash, and it will not be ugly for that school. Now, they are 2-0. Now, who could they crumble to? USC is one of them I think about. Ohio State. Those are 2 games that I think that. But you got to think about some of these teams where you think they could win, they're gonna win, but they end up losing. I think of Wisconsin, Illinois, maybe, Minnesota. But at some point, Penn State will crumble. And even if it's in a playoff spot, they will crumble. And I will come back to this if it happens or when it happens and say I told you so. Penn State is just, they're good, but they're not that good. They're not championship material. Like, they're a good top 25 team, but anything past that, they're not that great. Missouri blows out Buffalo. Did not watch that game. Missouri last 2 years under Brady Cook has looked pretty fucking awesome. Hopefully they can get that a couple upset wins, maybe some one against Alabama. Utah, Baylor. Utah takes the win. Did not watch this one either. I know Cameron Rising, he left because of an injury. Hopefully that ain't too severe. Miami versus Florida A&M. Cam Ward has been one of my favorite players to watch. He's just so smooth the way he can move around, make plays. And in this game he made plays too. 304 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, he could become potential Heisman winner this year. Wouldn't be mad about it. He's looking pretty good for Miami. USC drops 48 on Utah State. One thing I did not expect from this new regime at post Caleb Williams was good defense. They waited till Caleb Williams left for them to actually have a good defense. They shut out LSU and of course putting 48-0 over Utah State. Like, defense is solid. And I feel like with the Big Ten, we all know Big Ten football, you need to have defense. So, looking into it, more, it's when USC has to play these bigger, tougher teams in the Big Ten, they can have a shot to go out there and show what they're made of. Especially in the Big Ten, because I feel like even though they're in the Big Ten, they need to show that they're Big Ten worthy. And well, USC is one that's showing out a little bit more because of that. Tennessee destroyed NC State. NC State, they struggled last week, almost an upset loss. And then they get destroyed by Tennessee, 51-10. Tennessee's quarterback, fucking phenomenal. Nico something Maliva. I can't pronounce his last name. My bad, everybody. But he's pretty solid. Tennessee is another one of those teams that I feel is an underdog for championship this year. Ole Miss, Tennessee, USC, Miami. Those are some power teams that I feel like they could come in, but also pull up an upset on one of these bigger schools or bigger teams. Oklahoma struggles against Houston. I was able to watch a little bit of this. Jackson Arnold, 174 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, interception. Just defense played alright, line up 12 points, but offensively 16 on Houston. Not a great look. Oklahoma State, Arkansas. Oklahoma State came back. I think it was 21-0. Ollie Gordon didn't play well. He's 17 for 49 yards, touchdown. Alan Bowman was the man of the show. 27 completions for 48 passing attempts, 326 passing yards, and a touchdown. Kickers at the end missing field goals, but then at the end, Oklahoma State gets a touchdown over Arkansas. Arkansas is looking like a pretty solid team. They scored 70 last week. They scored 31 this week. Even though they took the loss, they're a pretty solid rising team that could fight for top 25 spot at the end of the year. Kansas State Tulane, that was another fun game that happened on this weekend. Tulane, they were doing really good against them. Just at the end, they couldn't pull it off. Tulane is also another one of those teams that could fight for 25 spot playoff or 25 in the top 25. Darian Mensah played really well. And obviously, if it wasn't for that fumble that Kansas State guy picked up, scored with, you're looking at a whole different game. But that fumble really screwed Tulane at the end. LSU destroyed Nicole State. Nothing new there. Illinois upset against Kansas. Did not really see that one going. Luke Altmer played decent for the most part, but Kansas they were looking up into the season. They looked like they could have a shot, but Illinois comes in and huge upset. Arizona takes the W. Struggles against NIU. Louisville destroys Jackson State. Syracuse defeats Georgia Tech. Syracuse looking like a very strong team, actually. Haynes King, though, for Georgia Tech, he played all right for himself, but Syracuse, Kyle McCord is the man in town over there. He was the man in town in Ohio State. He didn't look this good over there in Ohio State, though. Like, he looked solid, decent, but he didn't look this good. Syracuse brought something in him. Almost 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Just crazy game on his part. And I believe that Kyle McCord single-handedly could lead Syracuse to a potential ACC championship game. And honestly, it'd be shocking to see Syracuse be so good at this point, because they haven't been this good since 2018, where they were 10-3, bowl game winner. But up until this point, Syracuse has had not great seasons, and coming in here, starting year 2-0, solid pickup for them. Clemson destroyed Appalachian State 66-20. I'm just gonna say that their loss last week to Georgia really must have done something, because Clay Kubnik only had 2 incompletions, 5 touchdowns, 370 yards passing. So yeah, that must have done something for him. A couple other games I want to talk about for the week. Iowa State rivalry game. As y'all know, Iowa fan here, and I am truly disgusted at what I had to watch. Outside of the first half, everything past that, it was a disgust to watch. Iowa comes out, starts strong. Caleb Johnson, good rushing touchdown. Hell, last week he wasn't even starting. This week he's coming in, and now he's had 2 100-yard games, almost 200 yards rushing. And he comes in and he just plays very, very well. But he ain't the one I'm mad with. Defensively, they did all they could. They looked very strong at the start. Then they let up. Caden McNamara threw an interception. And then they let up a touchdown, and they let up a one-play touchdown, which Iowa doesn't really do that often. And then they come back on the final drive and score for the game-winning field goal. Jalen Knoll had himself a hell of a game. 5 receiving yards, or 5 catches for 133 yards, a touchdown. Jaden Higgins, 68 yards for 8 catches on a touchdown. Rocco Beckett, though, he outside of him throwing into them two, he still doesn't look great. He still had 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Iowa was able to stop the run. But Caden McNamara, like, if you look at the first half of last week and the second half of this week, you don't want to see that out of your team. And to be honest, it looks worse than what we had to see last year from Deacon Hill. And parts of the season with Cade last year. Like 13 for 29, 2 interceptions, not even 100 yards. Like, what are we doing here, man? You're throwing Caleb Williams' stat line up here. Week 1 Caleb Williams' stat line. I think the only bright spot of the team right now is Caleb Johnson, the defense, and Jacob Gill, who were taken for granted right now after he transferred from Northwestern. I really don't know what to say, because I feel like Cade could show more, but he looks lost a lot of time. When he's comfortable, he's comfortable. But when he's not, when you get too comfortable, that's when he starts to lose everything. And Iowa was comfortable with a 13-0 lead, and then of course a 19-7, which they should have went for the field goal instead of the 2-point. You're Kurt Ferentz, you're a coach. You're a 26-year vet for Iowa, and you're getting out-coached by fucking Iowa State. Matt Campbell, who went fucking 4-8 last year. Like, what are we doing here? Like, y'all lost 10-7 to them 2 years ago. That was already bad enough. You know, this year is even worse, because you got outsmarted by a fucking shitty ass coach of Matt Campbell, in my opinion. Um, Iowa, I'm really questioning their ability for the rest of the season because now we're getting to a point where they could lose some of these games that I thought my projection, my high for Iowa was 11-1. Their only loss was going to be to Ohio State. Now, if Iowa plays like they had in the second half of the week 1 and first half of week 2, Iowa they can do it. Their defense is really strong. Defense is so good. One of the best defenses in college football. Offense just needs to click, and if they don't, it's going to look very ugly. You spent all this money to get Cade, and you don't really even do anything big. You know, he tore his ACL, which isn't his fault really, but he still looked very bad in spots last week. I need to see some improvement coming out of him. And then the next game I want to talk about here, Nebraska, Colorado. Nebraska comes in. You'd think they'd be underdogs, but they came in and fucking blew the fucking doors off Colorado. Nebraska, honestly, if after that first touchdown and they let the balloons up in the air and everything and all this, if they didn't get chills, they're lying to themselves, because that was literally chills going up and down my spine. Dylan Raiola, he only added 185 passing yards on a touchdown, 23 for 30, but he looks solid. The first 2 weeks he's looked solid. Needs to stop the Patrick Mahomes cosplay look. That ain't gonna do him no favors. It's getting social media attention, but you play bad, the memes are gonna go crazy, and it's just not gonna look good on his site. But Nebraska looks very good. They are one of those another dark horse teams that can come in and win a Big Ten potentially, and then also maybe get themselves a playoff spot. They are now ranked because of it, because of this win. I need to see something, because let's be honest here, Colorado's defense ain't the best. And really, they didn't. No one scored after halftime, so. And if you throw away the pick six, it's a 21-10 game. So, even though Nebraska won, I feel like we could still need stuff to improve on offensive side, and defensively they look awesome. They look pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie to you. Number 9 for Nebraska, can't think of his name right now. He's a fucking dog. He looks like he's been in the NFL for 10 years. Very good looking player. Now you look over at Colorado. I really don't know what to say, because I thought going into last year they had a shot to be one of the better teams, one of the best teams. We're a year plus into this experiment with Deion Sanders and have got nothing except egos pushing each other and losses. Now, they struggled against North Dakota State. They lost in Nebraska. Like, I honestly don't know how they're going to get through this rest of the season. Their egos are just way too big. Shedeur Sanders, Deion's are huge. Travis Hunter is the only one, and I'm honestly surprised that he's the only one that you don't see much of an issue with. He plays the game, he learns, and he studies. Like, he is who you want in a football player. He dedicates everything to football, and he plays really well. Shador, I feel like Shador and Dion, since they came over to Colorado, is boosted their ego and boosted their social media, but that's all they've done. They haven't done nothing huge. Um, Shador's good, but he has a huge ego problem, and it doesn't help when your dad's been your coach for years, and now, and you come on TV or in an interview and you talk shit on your O line, like we know their shit, but you can't throw the blame on them. Throw the blame at your father a little bit. Your father literally, he has the name Deion Sanders right now. That name single-handedly got him Travis Hunter. That name single-handedly got him 50 some recruits out of anywhere and transfers. Um, and we're in a year into it, and look where we're at. Deion Sanders is single-handedly ruining Travis Hunter. Luckily, Travis Hunter's so good that GMs are going to realize the situation that's over there, and they're going to be like, even though the team's bad, Travis Hunter is the bright spot of the team. Like, he can play both sides. He knows what he's doing. Shador. I feel like Shador still needs a lot of growing up to do, a lot of maturity going on here. I feel like he still needs a lot to learn, because he does get sacked a lot. The O-line's very bad, but he will run half of the time he gets sacked. He runs into those sacks because he's trying to make a play. He's trying to be a Caleb Williams. Well, you're not Caleb Williams. You're Shador Sanders. And honestly, we should have been seeing this from the time he was in Jackson State. Their last game they were in Colorado, or before they left for Colorado. You could see it. When Shador, when he crumbles, he runs around trying to find an option, and nothing goes his way. It's a lot of what Malik Willis had when he was in Liberty. I think Shador is better than Malik Willis. Let's be honest here. Malik Willis is not very good. But Colorado needs to show some sort of fire and show that they're not just there because, they're not there for an ego boost or whatever. They're there to show that they could play. And honestly, if Deion Sanders goes another year with this losing, and it goes into another year losing, I would fire him. He's on the hot seat 2 weeks into his second season with Colorado. And honestly, if we go into next year, he's going to lose Shador, and 90% chance he's going to lose to Travis Hunter. Even though Travis Hunter's a junior, I could still see him wanting to go to the NFL with how good he is already. Because let's be honest, what is there left to learn when your team's losing by 40 every week, or your team's struggling to even beat FCS team, But I want to see more out of Colorado. I don't like how they play football right now. They're not playing very well. Egos are getting really squished into the moment right now. Going into week 3, some games I'm looking forward to. Alabama, Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I know they're going to give Alabama a fight on defense. Alabama's still going to go with the win. Oregon State. Very interested to see that one. Oregon, let's see if they can actually pull up some big scores and not struggle. Michigan, Arkansas State. Michigan's going to win, obviously. Notre Dame versus Purdue. Notre Dame, they're going to try to come back after what happened last week. Nebraska versus Northern Iowa, UNI. They're going to beat the brakes off of them. Illinois versus Central Michigan. This is Big Ten. I'm going through top 25. Now, give me a minute here. Okay, here we are back. So, Arizona and Kansas State play each other on Friday. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Georgia versus Kentucky. They're going to blow them out the water. Texas versus UTSA. Blow them out of the water. Alabama, like I said, they're going to get a fight out of Wisconsin. Ole Miss versus Wake Forest. Ole Miss going to blow them out of the water. Boston College versus Missouri. That's gonna interesting one. Boston College under Bill O'Brien um, looks pretty good. I can't wait to see what they can pull out against one of the top better teams in Missouri. Tennessee versus Kent State. Tennessee's gonna blow them out of the water. Oregon versus Oregon State. Already talked about it. Miami's gonna blow Ball State out. Utah's gonna blow Utah State out. Oklahoma State is gonna beat Tulsa, destroy them. Oklahoma's gonna destroy is gonna beat Tulane. They're not gonna destroy them, but they're gonna beat them. But Tulane's gonna give them a huge fight. They did to Kansas State. LSU, South Carolina. LSU's gonna blow them out of the water. Those are your top 25 teams. And then Iowa, of course, my favorite team. I believe they play Troy this week. And I want to see something out of this team. I want to see that they can come in and play good. And show something that says I can get confidence going into when we have to play Minnesota, when we have to go in and play Wisconsin or Ohio State or Nebraska. Like, show me some confidence. That's all I'm asking. But you're gonna see this probably Tuesday morning. NFL review week 1 will be coming out Tuesday, Wednesday maybe. That's gonna be a fun one. Go Cowboys! They took the dub against the Cleveland Browns. But y'all have a good one. Stay blessed. And let me know what is the best and worst thing that you've seen so far from your favorite team. So, stay blessed and have a good day.